Oh, that's ominous.
We'll have this for eternity.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, Rabbi. I think I might have to sign off immediately.
Deal with the other guys. Okay, so maybe just a real brief introduction. Who we are, what we do, why we're here. So I'm Nitzan Bergman. I teach Torah classes, and I'm here to help you guys and learn from you guys.
Well, I'll go. I'm Gil Raven, and I work for an educational kind of tour company that we do sort of civics and education for middle school and high school kids that visit here in DC, and live here in DC with a wife and 2 kids. And I was hooked into this by some street peddler. I don't even know if he was Jewish, but he was handing out flyers, and then the rabbi's sort of email was on it. I contacted him, and no, I found out about this through my dad, who knew Rabbi Bergman, and I did the previous course with Jason and a couple other folks about the 10 Commandments, which was outstanding, very, very good, and so it's kind of a no-brainer to continue.
I'm next.
You're next. Definitely you.
I'm Dave Sheckman. I'm one of the general surgery residents at Brigham Medical Center, so I get to work with Jason. Moved from Cleveland down to San Antonio and was quickly removed from most other members of the tribe. And Jason was talking about the 10 Commandments series, and it definitely sounded like something I was interested in. So when this came up, I jumped on board.
Fantastic. Are you single, married, kids?
Married, 1 dog who, unfortunately, both my wife and I are physicians, so not a ton of free time to go around.
I'm Don. Let's see. I work at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. I do computational biology. My background's mathematics, but I apply it to genetics and stuff like that. I found out about this course through Gil, who I've known since, I don't know, forever, middle school. And he described the last course, said he had a really great experience, and I thought I would see what it's about. I have a wife, 3 kids, 12, 10, and 9, I think. They keep changing ages. It's really weird. They just, and you have to keep track of which one's which. One of them is off to camp for the first time forever, away for 12 days, and we'll see how that goes. That's it.
Where do you guys live?
Oh, we're on Long Island.
Oh.
Have you heard of it? There are many Jews here.
Yeah.
I'm told they look, everybody looks very Jewish.
I'm not sure.
Or Italian. It's pretty much, it's very similar.
Yeah, so you guys gave more information than I did. So we live in Baltimore, and we also have 3 kids, 24, 22, and 13.
What's it like? What's it like?
And the 24-year-old's married to a girl from Woodmere. And they're living in Cedarhurst. So done. If you ever around that area, knock them up.
They have some Jewish people in that area too, I'm told.
They were looking for something very dispersed and integrated. So okay. So with no further ado, great. Thank you all for coming, joining, being interested in this. What we want to do over the next 10 weeks, and hopefully we can go straight. We'll see if there are any weeks that come up that there's too many conflicts. It might be wise to just, it's the summer, we might skip one. But what I want to do is explore the Shema Yisrael. It has to be the most iconic Jewish prayer. Shema Israel. There are stories, whether they are true or not is not that important. But the fact that they use this prayer for stories, you know, the two guys that were, the one was fighting for the northern troops and the one for the southern, and they met, you know, the northerners about to shoot the guy, the southerner, on the Battle of Gettysburg, and he goes, Shema Israel, and the northerner goes, what? You're a Yid, right? And he, you know, saves his life. That one needs to be verified. True story is that Rav Herzog was the first chief rabbi of Palestine under the British Mandate, and he had the sorry job of trying to track down Jewish children that had been taken into convents in Europe during the war. That was quite a common thing, that, you know, Jewish adults, whatever, they were being sent to the camps or whatever, and I think the convents were quite happy to take these kids. Story goes, he went to the Pope and he said, I want my children back. And the Pope said, no go. And then he made a big effort to actually tour Europe, and he would go to the convent and he would say, Shema Yisrael, and he would look to see which kid would look up. So, you know, that's it's the Jewish war cry, it's the Jewish anthem, it's the, in fact, I'm really sorry, I've had a big technical glitch just now, as normally happens on the first of any of my classes. It's almost like I'm used to it now. Like, what will be the glitch? The glitch tonight is that I prepared a really nice sheet using this great app called Safaria, which you're going to get used to because I need to recreate the whole thing. I tried to as fast as I could. And I had tons of pictures. We have no pictures tonight. They stole my pictures. I'm going to be calling Neil Dubovsky. Do you know Neil, Dan?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay. He was our resident lawyer on the last course. So I'm going to be taking up legal action with the app to get my pictures back. But I found that the you know, that nice menorah outside the Knesset in Israel, has a round section near the bottom, and on that it says Shema Yisrael. Right? So it's there. It's our you know, it's our Jewish statement of identity. You know, part of this is very much a discussion, by the way, Dan and David, except when Gil gets going, I have to quiet him down. But most of it, it's a very open discussion. So I actually wanted to open up and just say, have you guys, you know, what does the Shema mean to you, maybe? And, you know, do you have any cool stories or anecdotes about the Shema Yisrael? Oh, fantastic. Those are really interesting.
All right. Well, anecdotes, no, but recently, I don't know when, I looked up the word phylacteries because I had no idea what it meant or where it came from. And the whole notion of binding your arms and putting the word of God between your eyes, this notion of carrying it out in a physical manifestation, what is very much what do you call it, like a metaphysical concept, right? To bind your hand and to put between your eyes to keep in your vision. And so that, I don't know, that was something I had spent a little bit of time thinking on, I don't know, last year or something. Crossed the transom of my mind. So that's something that I thought was interesting, and where that origin is and how we got to fill it in the first place is also a bit of a mystery, but I could see how one would take that in a literal sense and why that has a value. I mean, not something that I personally do, but.
Great. Okay. So that's good. listen, I don't know your guys' Jewish education. I'm not sure. David, are you familiar with phylacteries?
With
Are you familiar with phylacteries?
Yeah.
To fill in.
To fill
Sorry,
in.
to fill
Yes.
in.
Fill in.
To fill in. In
Yeah.
English, they call it phylacteries, which is just
Right.
a funny word.
It is a funny word. Sounds very anatomical.
Or just Greek. Something the Greeks would come up with.
Right.
That's fair.
I bet you.
So to put it in context for me, so kind of on the similar note of mark it on your gateposts and doorposts, I grew up in rural Southern Ohio. We had to drive 45 minutes to get to shul. That was the closest synagogue to us. And then moved to Cleveland for 12 years, which was, essentially like moving to the moon. And walking down the hallway in the dorms, my first day of moving into college and seeing mezuzah. So that kind of goes back to it shows the welcoming place that you're entering.
Okay.
And
Cool.
then I ended up joining AEPI and then spent way more time with Jews than.
Oh, so that's it. You're done. Okay. I mean, thanks for gracing us, but okay. So just a bit of reference. The Shema, and we're not really going to discuss it much tonight, but the Shema is really made up of 3 paragraphs from the Torah. And it's a recitation to be said every morning and every night. And we're going to discuss when else. Tonight is really, I call it the story of the Shema, the history of it and its role in Judaism. The first 2 paragraphs mention doing very physical things, right? Binding them on your arms, putting them between your head, that's the tefillin, and writing them on the doorposts of your home, that's the mezuzah. And rabbinic tradition tells us that these 2 paragraphs are the paragraphs that should be written in on scrolls and then inserted into the tefillin and put on the mezuzah, right? So that's where it comes from. It's the Shema is there at every mezuzah. The Maimonides makes a comment very much in line with yours, Dan. That must mean you have a very deep and high soul. And Maimonides says that you're walking through the doorpost and suddenly you are struck with the mezuzah, and you see the mezuzah and you're reminded. He says you wake up from your slumber and you're reminded about the fact that there's a God and the fact that He's one and the whole Jewish Meshaberach. So there you go. He saw that as the interface of the metaphysical and the physical, coming together on the door. Excellent. Great. Okay. Dave, were you going to say anything about your experience with the Shema or what it means to you? How many times did you say it on that 45-minute drive?
So, I mean, one of the big things with that is, the shul I grew up in, there were people that used it to fill in, folks that didn't, but the mezuzah was kind of relatively universal. So that was like one of the big things, especially, like I said, going to college, that really kind of struck home with it. That community.
Did you know before tonight that the Shema is written in the mezuzah? Okay, good. A lot of
That's
people.
What made me bring up the mezuzah.
Okay, fine, great. Sorry, I didn't know who brought it up. Okay, and Gil.
A personal anecdote, since everybody shared what I think to be more interesting and more sort of substantive comments, I bring in my personal thing with the Shema is that I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. We're going to see in-laws and things in Austin, Texas. And every time I get on a plane and when we're taking off, I say the Shema quietly to myself. And I don't know when I started doing that. It was definitely before I guess before I was being a little bit more sort of reverential or respectful about Jewish tradition, shall we say. Not that I was, I wasn't off on some sort of like anarchist bent beforehand, but I mean, I become more respectful, more interested and sort of closer. But I've been saying that on an airplane for a long time. That's because it's my acknowledgement that I'm no longer in control. And beyond that, I'm worried about we're always at the mercy of how good this pilot is. You don't think about it. You get on a plane, you're at the mercy of however good this pilot is. You have no idea what's going on. It's unhelpful to watch the movie Flight with Denzel Washington in that case. So I say the Shema and then I complete it when I land. And that's something I've done for flights. I can't even remember I've done that every single flight. And it's weird because it's not like I do that at another time. I mean, maybe if I went under anesthesia and was having an operation, I might do something similar. It's like, well, once you're checking out and once you're sort of no longer in control, then you begin to call on the higher power to help you or to sort of see you through, right? And even if there's turbulence at times before, it's been my mantra until I forget what my mantra is. But it's been my mantra when I sort of as a comforting thing. So, and I think I'm certainly not unique in that way. I think a lot of Jews over the years have used it as not just a sort of spiritual prayer, but as a way of sort of, I don't know, some sort of self-aligning kind of like a homing beacon of some sort.
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen now. I found some of my pictures. So this was one that was on my source sheet, right? Which I think very much speaks to your point, Gil, right? There's this Israeli soccer player that's getting Ma Hamashma'ut Shel Shema Yisrael. It's from an article saying what's the meaning of Shema Yisrael.
Shma'ut is meaning, okay.
Yeah, but it's it goes to the point. By the way, I found my picture of the
yeah,
the Knesset. Oops, what happened there? No, thank you. Like this. If you could see over here, the Shema Yisrael. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, very small. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hang on a second.
Yeah, you can zoom in. There you go.
Oh, there we
Right.
go. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Right. There it is. Shema Yisrael. Actually, it has some interesting other verses on it. It says, not through weapons and not through soldiers, but through the word of God are we victorious. So that's interesting.
It is interesting because Israel is in the founding was sort of very much, I mean, whatever, I don't want to digress, but very much sort of a socialist, or there was the tension, right, between the state and the sort of religion, and especially among the founding generation, Ben Gurion et al., right? So it's interesting. When was that placed in front of the Knesset? I mean, was that from the founding? I don't
know.
Yeah, I'm curious. I have to look into that. I'm just curious.
There were guns involved in the founding, right? I mean,
yeah,
pretty sure I was in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the sentiment is that I'm sure, right, that what sustains it is hopefully going to be okay with the.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get to that at some stage about the dynamic of human effort and God's blessing or God's assistance. We're definitely going to touch that. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Just a little background information that we need is that who was the first Jew?
Abraham.
Right?
Very good, Abraham, right? I got to tell you, I before we came to Baltimore, I was in Cape Town, South Africa, as a rabbi, and one of my more devious moves, which paid no fruits whatsoever, was to go to the preschool on a Friday morning and tell the kids some little stories and give them some chips, and then tell them, come to shul with your parents tonight. It didn't work, but it was my entree into preschool teaching. And I had this little group, And I wanted to speak about Abraham, so I said to them, who was the first Jew? The one kid puts up his hand and goes, Adam. I'm like, "Oh, that's an interesting answer, but I think someone else was the first Jew." Another kid goes, Moses. I'm like, oh, Moses was a super Jew, but he wasn't the first Jew. And then some little kid from the side goes, Jesus.
You're in the wrong class.
that went pear-shaped quickly.
We all had a good laugh. Like, okie dokie then. Hey, see me after class, kid. So Abraham's the first Jew. Abraham has Yitzchak. Abraham has Yitzchak. Yitzchak is his son. He also has this guy called Ishmael. But the covenant is passed through Yitzchak, right? Ishmael doesn't get the covenant with God. Then Yitzchak has these two kids, these twins, in fact, Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov and Esau, and who's Jacob and Esau. And the covenant again is passed down only to Yaakov, to Jacob. Now, Jacob goes ahead and lives a very tumultuous life, actually. And at some stage, he finds himself wrestling with an angel, right? One of these good pictures is going to be wrestling with the angel. Let me see. Oh, no, that's the Messiah. There he is, right? Okay. So here is an artist's rendition of Yaakov who wrestled with the angel, and of course he overcame the angel. And then
He's renamed.
Israel.
He is renamed, right?
By the way, that angel doesn't look nearly as sort of violent or sort of disturbing or any kind of, that's a beautiful rendition. It's Renaissance.
You know what? This one I didn't know who painted it. It just came up, and I didn't have time to really research it. Yeah, it's kind of like the angels kind of just, dude, I've got you. Go away.
Yeah.
But anyway, so afterwards, and here's this app that I'll be doing tomorrow. It's called Safaria. I really recommend it. It's got everything in it. Genesis 32:29. I'll show you how it works a little bit.
It's great.
The Safaria library. You go to Tanakh, you go to Genesis, and there we are, 32:29. But you can really find anything. You can do chapter, parsha, commentary, and it's really got everything in it. So and it's most of it's translated. And as a friend of mine says, sometimes the translation's even better than the original. The and the angel says to Yaakov, to Jacob, the angel comes to him and says, V'yomer lo Yaakov ya'ema od shimcha. Your name will no longer be just Yaakov. Ki'im Yisrael. You are going to be called Israel, Yisrael. And that comes from the name Ki sarisa im Elokim ve'emanashe v'tucha, because you have striven, you fought with the Elohim is divine, a divine being, which simple understanding is the angel himself, ve'emanashim, and with people, of course, with v'tucha, and you have prevailed. It's a very strong name. It's interesting that name is used. Both names are used for the Jewish people. So let's try to get this here. When Moses is called up to the mountain, to Sinai, when they arrive at the mountain, a few days before the giving of the Torah, Moses is called up. Moshe ala Elokim, Moshe went up to God. V'yikra elav Hashem, and God spoke to him in a heart. Lemor, he said to him, Ko tomar lebeit Yaakov v'taged lebnei Yisrael. This is what you should say to Beit Yaakov, the house of Jacob, v'taged, and tell Bnei Yisrael. So there are two. Now, it's the same guy, right? Yaakov. Oh, so let's just complete the history. So Abraham's the first Jew. One of his sons gets the covenant, Isaac. Isaac has two sons. One of his sons, only Jacob, gets the covenant. But then Jacob's children are all Jewish, right? Those are the 12 tribes, and hence the Jewish people, right? And from then on, you're born a Jew, you're stuck being Jewish, right? It came from that time. That was a change in the way we are Jewish. But both names of Jacob are used, right? So this is 200, 300 years later. Moses is going up on the mountain. Jacob is way dead. The Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt. They've been there for 210 years. They've come out, and here they are at Sinai. And God is referring to the Jewish people as Beit Yaakov and Bnei Yisrael. What's the difference between them? So I think my explanation, there are a lot of commentaries about it. Yaakov is the natural, more passive Jewish person. He's born Yaakov. Yisrael is what he becomes. It's the more active. Now, this is very probably not so politically correct, but guess what, guys? We aren't. The
You're being
commentary. Yeah, sorry, Gil. Rashi. What does Rashi say? Right? Rashi says now. So Rashi, just to tell you, is a commentary. Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki. He lived in France in the 11th century. Wrote a commentary which to this day is the main commentary on the Torah and the Talmud. An amazing work. So his job, he says it himself, in commenting on the Torah is to use the oral law, the Talmud and the Midrashim, to explain the written law. So tell the children, the sons of Israel, explain to the men the punishments and the details of the commandments. In words that are hard, right? Sorry, I missed the one before, because you guys are in the way. Lebeit Yaakov, who's the house of Jacob? The woman. Tell them, speak to them in a gentle language. So, right, basically, Rashi is saying like this. Ko toma amira, you should say to the woman, to the house of Jacob is the woman. And then v'taged, you should tell Bnei Yisrael, that's the men. You speak to men and women differently. You did that in the 12th century, right? 11th century, where some of us might still do it. So that kind of gives you a taste of the two different aspects, right? Good.
Rabbi?
Yes.
In the passage, it said that he struggled and prevailed, but the name is Yisrael, which is just the struggling part.
No, it's not. Yisar Ale.
Well, to struggle with God, but it's not the prevailing part, right?
Ah.
It's not the.
So that's a good question. Done. Very good. Straight go. Yeshiva's waiting for you. They'll answer this question for you.
Gee, it's a big commitment. One question.
Okay.
Well, I've often been struck by the name of Yisrael and the struggle with God, and that's what we do as the Jewish people. It's not like we've got the answers handed to us. We kind of are always sort of working with what we've got and figuring out the way. But I hadn't seen that before, that it's that you struggled and prevailed. So it's sort of which is great. I mean, it's nice that there's an emphasis on the, but it's curious that we've taken that as the name of the people instead of the, I like it. It's a good choice. I mean, in the sense, right, the joy of things are in the struggle, not in the fruit or in the
prevailing.
Yeah, I'm not sure my answer is that deep, but my answer to you is most people don't speak about their struggles unless they overcame them, right?
I don't know. It's in the fashion now, I think.
As I said, we're not politically correct.
Just saying, right? I mean, there's something to be said for. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. But good. Great point. Thank you. Okay. We are now. We're now going to move to the end of Jacob's life, the end of Israel's life. Yeah, we have an artist rendition. Let's see, we could even make this one a bit bigger. It's so unclear. But here's a sick man lying in his bed, and he's got 12 people around him. So this is Jacob or Israel on his sick bed. Okay. Funny hats they had back in Egypt then. So the Torah tells us like this. This is in Genesis. The Torah says like this. And Jacob called his sons and said, come together and I may tell you what is to befall you in the days to come. Right? Or actually, more accurately, ba'achrit hayamim, in the end of days. So he's got this tremendous revelation to give his sons. And then it's interesting, right? So Al-Banav, he calls his children, he says, Hikaptu b'shimu b'nei Yaakov, v'shimu al Yisrael avichem. Right? Assemble, hearken, O sons of Jacob, hearken to Israel, your father. Again, always bringing these two names together. And then he starts to kind of say things which have nothing to do with the end of days. In fact, he starts to bless his children. Reuven, you are my firstborn, my might, my first vigor, and he goes on to bless his children. So the Talmud, which tries to make sense of the written law of the Torah, the Talmud's very bothered by this. What happened? Yaakov, he called them together to reveal something very great. And he went on to bless them. Yeah, very nice, they got a blessing. But what happened to the end of days? So here's the Talmud. This is in a Masechta. Each book of the Talmud is called a Masechta. It's called Pesachim because most of it relates to the festival of Pesach. But the Talmud we study, it's called Talmud Bavel, which is the Babylonian Talmud. And the word Bavel really comes from the Torah when the earth was mixed up in the times of the flood. So the word Bavel means to be Mebulbal, means what? Confused. Yeah. Your ideas are all over the place. The Talmud is very much like that, which going back to your point, is part of the struggle, right? It's not presented as, here's a nice, no, it's a big mess. And you've got to struggle to make, right? That's part of the learning experience. And probably the integration and making it ourselves, making it ours. So let's look at this. Now, Reish Lakish is one of the sages of the Talmud. Very interesting man. His name is actually, he used to be a thief, and he kind of found his way back to the straight and narrow. So I'm a Reish Lakish. You know what? I'm going to jump to the English here. Okay. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, and Jacob called his sons and said, gather around, I'll tell you what will occur to you at the end of days. Jacob wanted to reveal to his sons when the complete redemption would arrive at the end of days, the idea of the Messiah, a very Jewish idea going all the way back to Jacob, but the divine presence abandoned him, so rendering him unable to prophesy. So he said, perhaps the divine presence has abandoned me because heaven forfend one of my descendants, my children, is unfit, as was the case with my grandfather Abraham, for whom Ishmael emerged, and like my father Isaac, for whom Esau emerged. But here's Yaakov on his deathbed, ready to reveal the end of days, and suddenly the divine presence leaves him. His son said to him, "Hear, Israel, our father, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." Okay? So take it literally. These are the children of Israel. Yaakov, right? His name is Israel. And they say to him, Abba, Papa, hear, O Israel, that's his name. You should know, we think Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. They said, just as there is only one God in your heart, so too there's only one in our heart. Right? So the first meaning of Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, is really the Lord is our God. The Lord is one, just like he is one in your heart. At that moment, Jacob, our father, said in praise, "Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever." Now, if you look in the Siddur and the way that the prayer book, after the Shema is said, where's our Shema gone? One second. No, that's not what I want. Okay, well, watch this, gents. We're gonna find it ourselves. So let's go to this app. We go over here. We want to go to the prayer book, liturgy. We want to go to Siddur. We'll do Ashkenaz. Are we all Ashkenaz, by the way?
50-50.
Oh yeah. Okay. What's daddy?
My father's from Egypt.
Oh.
My mother was from Israel, but from Polish stock.
And how long was your father in Egypt?
Well, he was born there. His parents were from Libya and all over.
Oh.
His 23 is interesting. My mother's is just the straight Ashkenazi, 99%.
Interesting. Okay. So do you consider yourself Sephardi because of your father?
Especially on Passover.
That rice.
Man.
Oh, I love the rice.
Yeah.
Kitniot are so good. They're so good.
There's nothing that stops Ashkenazim from following it. My mother said if it's good enough for Sephardim, of course, if it were like more harsh, the Sephardic tradition, I have a feeling we probably wouldn't have adopted that.
That's true.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so when we say the Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, the following two lines are to be said silently. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam. Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. That goes back to this story with Jacob and his children, right? We'll come back to that. Stay tuned, right? We'll come back to that. Stay tuned. So that's, to me, that's the first scene in the unfolding of the story of the Shema. Okay. 40 years later, hang on a second. This is Jacob and his children. So many years later, almost, I would say 300 years later, Moses comes along and Moses is no, I've gone out of order. Sorry, folks. I'm telling you on my sheet that I prepared. It was all in order. Okay, let's fast forward now to Sinai. So this is Jacob and his children. They kind of get stuck in Egypt for 210 years. They come out and they go to this mountain called Sinai, and God speaks to them. Okay, so here is a midrash. And believe it or not, I did the work of even translating the bit I wanted of this midrash, but I don't have it in front of me now. Chama Rabbi Pinchas ben Chama. So these are the rabbis of the Talmud, of the Midrash, right? They tell us how things really were and are. Sorry. Okay, yeah, we can go from here. Here's the Midrash. Omehechan zachu Yisrael likrot Shema. Where did the Jewish people merit to be able to have this Shema? To be able to get on an airplane and go Shema Yisrael, and then the thing doesn't crash, right? Where do we get this from? So, Amar Rabbi Pinchas ben Chama, that was his name, Mimatan Torah, from the giving of the Torah. Zachu Yisrael likros Shema. That's where we got it. Ketzad, what do we mean? At Motzeh lo patach Kodesh Baruch Hu b'Sinai techila ela b'dvar zeh. When God started speaking, Amalehem, he said to them, Shema Yisrael, listen, Jewish people, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. He took you out of the land of Egypt. Na'anu kulam va'amru. They didn't just stand there and say nothing. They were Jews, right? Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So this was the Jewish response to Sinai. On Moshe Amar, what was Moses doing? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'elam Va'ed. Right? So the Shema plays out at Sinai. It's right. It's not a mistake that the Shema Yisrael. It's the Jewish response to hearing God speak to us, and God tell us, "I'm the Lord your God," and we're like, "Yes, God, you are our Lord." And Moses saying, "Oh, thank God." Yeah. There's even a stronger. What did I just do? Oh my word! I deleted it. I didn't delete it. I closed it. Okay, hang on. I'm getting there.
Gosh, Rabbi, I feel bad for you with all these technical difficulties. It's giving me shpilkus. I feel like
Have you got some chicken soup there?
Deleted your notes.
Have you got some chicken soup? It helps for shpilkas.
Yeah. What helps?
Chicken soup.
Oh, chicken soup. Yeah. Okay.
It helps with the shpilkus?
Yes, it does.
You don't want to shpilkus it in your, sorry, that's not going to go anywhere. It's bad. It's just bad.
Right.
This is a time for coffee talk. We need a topic to discuss.
Okay, Talmud. Now, we said there's a Babylonian Talmud. There's also a Jerusalem Talmud, right? It's called the Yerushalmi. Actually, to this day, people born in Jerusalem are called Yerushalmis, right? Right? So here we go in the, Baruch Hashem, it opened to the place. Okay. Says the Talmud Yerushalmi. Why do we say the Shema? At least the two paragraphs. Okay, not the third one. We're just talking about the first two. Rabbi Levi Rabbi Simon, right? Basically, you could reread Simon as Simon, by the way. Very Jewish name. Rabbi Simon Omer, Rabbi Simon says, because as when we get into the Shema, we'll see that it says, and you shall say these words when you lie down and when you get up. Well, that's what we do. When we lie down at night, we say the Shema, and when we get up in the morning, we say the Shema. Whoa! Yay! Jason!
What's up, Jason?
Hello, hello. Sorry.
Hey, how are you? Okay. Yeah, we heard you were drinking beer with the boys. That's what David
Yeah.
told us. He said he came, he asked you to come, he begged you, you just fought him off.
Basically.
What was the surgery successful?
Yeah, nothing injured, so.
Oh, good. Okay.
Had to check.
Just to catch you up, we're talking about the Shema Yisrael. We're in the Talmud Yerushalmi, and the Talmud saying why do we say these two paragraphs? There really are three. It's just focusing on the first two. And Rabbi Simon says because it says in the paragraph, say these words when you lie down and when you get up, and that's where we get the mitzvah. This right? This of reciting the Shema more evening and morning. Okay. Rabbi Levi Omer, Rabbi Levi says, Mipnei she'aseret hadibrot koilalim behem. Because if you look carefully, the 10 Commandments are included in them. So it's a way of saying or remembering the 10 Commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, it says in the 10 Commandments, I'm the Lord your God. My Israel Hashem Elokeinu. That corresponds to, hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. Lord, hang on one sec. Lo yeh lecha.
Yeah.
Lo yeh lecha. Do not Elohim acherim al panai. Do not have any other gods before me. That's the second commandment. Hashem echad. The Lord is one. Right. So I would like to suggest, and then by the way, and this will interest Gil and Jason the most, probably because they did the 10 Commandments course. It goes on to explain where the other of the 10 Commandments are found in the Shema. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say, based on the Midrash we saw before, that this was the response of the Jewish people at Sinai. So God started speaking and said, I'm the Lord your God, and the people responded, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Right? Listen, hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. God said, do not have any other gods before me. The Jewish people responded, Adonai Echad. Right? So that's where the Shema came to Sinai. That's the Sinai experience. Let's go forward. Let's go forward 40 years. 40 years is at the end of wandering in the wilderness, and yeah, it's the one that's open. And Moses is giving his last drasha. By the way, Jason, my app, I made a whole page with lovely pictures and everything, and it all, of course, for the first session, I can't access it. But let's see.
Almost like my thinking that I was going to be here on time.
Well, part of it. There we go. Right. Let's get rid of my picture, my drawings over here. Okay. So I didn't even realize this is Moses at the crossing of the sea. I thought it was just Moses speaking to the people. Okay, well, here's a nice picture of Moses. Okay, so Moses, they cross the sea, they go to Sinai, and then things go all wonky, and they land up in the desert for 40 years. At the end of 40 years, Moses gives a speech. That speech is basically the book of Deuteronomy, right? And it's a recap. Right? Deuteronomy, right? If you know, you've got a bit of Latin in there, you'll know that Deuter is 2, Ronomy is the law. It's the second law. It's Moses repeats. Part of what Moses tells us is Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Right? So it's who's speaking? Moses is speaking. Moses is telling the people, "Hear, O Israel." He's giving a commandment. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And that's where the rest of the paragraph is. And you shall love the Lord with all your heart and with all your soul and all your might. Take it, etc., etc. And I think there are how many verses? From 4 to 9. 5 verses. 5 verses in the book of Deuteronomy. This is the first paragraph of the Shema. This is the first paragraph. Now, anyone paying attention will notice that something is missing in the Torah. What's missing, guys?
Or who, Shever, that part.
Good. Done. Excellent. That part. Right? What happened to the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vo'ed? Okay. So, Jason, very, very briefly, just so you can have some clue about what we're talking about. What I'm trying to do is go through taking a historical perspective on the Shema through different ages. There's a legend that when Yisrael, who is Jacob, was about to die, his children, he gathered round his children, and he was doubtful whether his children really were all together. And his children said, "Shema Yisrael, listen, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." And he said, "Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vo'ed." Now, these words are not clearly in the Torah, right? When Moses speaks to the people, he doesn't say those words. But when we look at the Siddur in the prayer book, well, they are there. But there's something very strange about them, right? That it says they are to be said silently or in a whisper. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Where does that come from? Why do we say them silently? So this is really a big question, and I must find my. Yep, here it is, folks. Something to ponder, right? This is a good Talmudic question. Where are what's going on, Rabbi? And the rabbi needs to think. I mean, it's just right. There we are, folks. There we are. Okay.
People, Jews. I'm sorry, I have to interject because Don and I had this thing. We were together in San Francisco. It was in Oakland. We went to shul together. It was one of the. Was it Rosh Hashanah?
Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, right?
It was during the high holidays, and we were walking back from shul. It was Yom Kippur because we were hungry. Yeah. And you said, "We're two old
We're
Jews.
just two Jews.
Don't bother us.
We're too hungry.
We don't want to deal with all this tumult. We're two old Jews. We're walking up from.
What do you want?
Leave us alone. What do you want?" So we went on like that for most of the until Don. It was then girlfriend was basically banished us, and
yeah, no, she's okay with it.
She's okay.
Yeah,
it was funny to us at the time, mostly
anyway
in the throes of starvation. But that's what that picture was right there. That was two old Jews. What do you want?
Okay, so here's the Talmud. Here it is, folks. It really happened. The rabbi said. Okay. The rabbi said, "What should we do? Shall we recite this verse? But Moses, our teacher, did not say it in the Torah. Shall we not recite it? But Jacob said it." In order to resolve this dilemma, they established that this passage should be recited surreptitiously. So that's why we say it and we don't say it, right? We got to include it for Jacob, for Yaakov, Yisrael, but we can't include it for Moses. So that's why we
We're hedging.
So that's why we do it surreptitiously. We whisper it. Just a cute
Feels like a cheat.
Yeah.
Feels a little like a cheat.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a great one. We're ex. Yisrael. You want to analyze the Jewish words, names, psyche? We could, all right. I just there's a lot of blessings that are meant to be said over food, right? Hamotzi over bread and hagafen over wine. Some of the blessings are really hard to know which one to say. And potato latka is one of those, right? Because do you say ha'adama, blessed are you, God, for creating the fruit of the ground? Or do you say the more general one for foods which have been reconstituted and are not necessarily recognizable as their original state? Like we say, everything came about through God's word. We say that on chocolate, even though, right, chocolate came from a tree, right, came from the cacao bean. So, what do you do on a potato latka? So there was a wonderful rabbi that lived in Philadelphia, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky of blessed memory. There was a giant of Torah knowledge, and the story is that he was at a camp or something, and some kid came up to him and said, "Rabbi, what blessing should I say on my potato latka?" So he said, "A very quiet one." So, that's the Jewish response, Yeah, you ask a question back. But this is the amazing story of why you'll always find this Baruch Shem Kavod. It's said, but it's said silently. Now, there's one exception. There's one exception in the year. Does anyone know what it is? All right, Dan and Gil, you were having too much fun.
It's a Yom Kippur, right? I think it's a Yom Kippur.
On Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
During Elah? Or is it?
No, the whole of Yom Kippur. Whenever we say it on Yom Kippur, we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vo'ed. And when we do the series on the high holidays, we'll get there. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so far we've got Jacob and his sons, then we've got Sinai, then we've got Moses instructing the people, and then we've got, since then, saying it every day, morning and night of Shochba, right? Where are the words? When you're sitting in your house, you're going on the way, where are they? Of Shochbacha, when you lie down and when you get up. So ever since Moses told us to say these words, we say them. So that's what we do. Okay. Now, besides the morning and night Shema, the rabbis came along and said, pretty much in line with what Gil said, actually. It's a kind of safety net. The Shema is something to be said when you face danger. And according to the Talmud, every time you close your eyes at night and go to sleep, you face a certain amount of danger, right? You're not alert. Just take it simply. So it says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, even though one recited the Shema in the synagogue, it is a mitzvah to recite it upon his bed in the fulfillment of the verse when you lie down. Rabbi Yossi said, what verse alludes to the fact that one should say Shema in the evening upon his bed? Tremble and do not sin, say to your heart upon your bed, and be still, Selah. You can go to sleep, in peace. There we go. Saying the Shema. And that's a beautiful thing, by the way, to do with children, is to say the Shema with them before going to sleep. It's something I did with my kids, and we got to speak then, actually. And we got into some interesting conversations. Then I used to tell them, you can't speak after the Shema.
It's a good one.
Yeah. That is
Okay, so
You
there
can't
we
get
have
out
it.
of bed after the Shema. That's
So it's not only every morning or every night, but it's even when we're about to go to sleep. Now, there's the Talmud like this, and I'm jumping all over the place, and that's fine. A child, right? It is taught in the Mishnah, a minor who knows how to wave a lulav is obligated in the mitzvah. You got to get your boys the lulavs when they can shake a lulav. One who knows how to wrap himself in a garment is obligated in tzitzit, ritual fringes. One who knows to preserve the sanctity of phylacteries, there we go, done, right? In a state of cleanliness, which means having a clean body and not gas and gas. When you're wearing them, his father buys him phylacteries. If he knows how to speak, his father immediately teaches him Torah and Shema. So there's the Talmud. The first thing you teach your children is Torah. There's the Gemara. What Torah are you going to teach him? Rav Hamanuna said it refers to the verse Moses commanded us Torah, an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. Torah tziva lanu morasha kehilas Yaakov. There's the Gemara. Asks further, and what is Shema? What Shema should be taught to the children as the second thing that a child should learn to say? It's referring to the first verse. The first verse of the Shema. Okay, so the word Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, are words that your children should know. That's what the Torah, the Talmud tells us. So it's a day, for adults, morning and night, and before going to sleep, and then when children are born, we say it. In fact, at the bris, it's a custom to say it, and then, fascinatingly enough, it's a custom to say it as the last thing a person says while alive, right? There's an amazing story, it's a very long story about Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva died as a martyr. So the Romans killed him, and the Romans were, there we go, the Talmud tells us, they took out Rabbi Akiva to be executed. It was time for the Shema. And they were raking his flesh with iron combs. And he was reciting the Shema, thereby accepting upon himself the yoke of heaven. His students said to him, our teacher, even now, are you serious? As you're suffering so terribly, you recite the Shema? He said to them, all my days I've been troubled by the verse, and this comes from the Shema, with all your soul, love God with all your soul. Meaning, even if God takes your soul, even if it means giving up your soul for God. I said to myself, when will the opportunity be afforded to me to fulfill this verse? Now that it has been afforded to me, shall I not fulfill it? How's the golden opportunity? He prolonged his uttering of the word one until his soul left his body as he uttered his final word. One. A voice descended from heaven and said, happy are you, Rabbi Akiva, your soul left your body as you uttered Echad, one. So, based on this legend and the Kabbalistic thought, really, it is a custom that when a person dies, the last thing they say is the Shema. When I was in yeshiva in Israel, at that stage my family was living in England, and I'd gone home to visit, and I was coming back to Israel, and my soon after we took off, the plane was struck by lightning. Apparently, this happens all the time, right? Kind of putting a conductor up there. So that's fine. But when we came to land in Tel Aviv, the plane kind of descended and then went up again, descended and went up again. And then, the pilot came over and said, Shalom, Erev Tov, right? I got to tell you that the wheels are out. In fact, an F-16I had flown pretty close to the airplane. I saw it to check on whether the wheels had clicked into place or not, because the indicator in the cockpit had not come on. So, right, they look down, but they don't say they're down. Now, if they're not clicked into place, it's not such a great idea to land this plane, right? We're going to be in a lot of trouble. If they have clicked into place, well, we're just, taking precautions. But we are going to prepare for a crash landing. That was one of the most interesting 40 minutes of my life. Really thinking that I would die. We flew out, we dropped excess fuel, came in, did a beautiful landing. But I remember being, having learned this, being very excited and half, fearing for my life, saying the Shema as we're, going down. It's like Shema Israel, I'm like, Echad.
You got to time it right.
It was really hard to time, Gil. I'm telling you, that was my biggest problem. And then afterwards, I was nervous I wasn't sure whether is this the new reality? Is this we are okay? So sometimes I tell the story at the beginning of a class, and then people look at me like, "Well, what happened?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What happened?"
We didn't make it. You guys were.
We didn't make it. We died, and I'm here in hell with the rest of you.
Right.
Season 8 of Lost.
Right.
Yeah.
So there we are. So the Shema is right. It's the first thing. It's the last thing. It's the Jewish mantra, should we say, right? So it's by no coincidence, right? It's in the tefillin. It's in the tefillin. It's on the mezuzah. It's the central, when they call it declaration. It's not really a prayer, right? We're reading portions from the Torah. The only prayer part of it really could be the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut, which is kind of a blessing, right? Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom, but the rest is just reciting verses from the Torah from 3 different paragraphs. And obviously the first line plays a more profound or important role than the rest of it. That's really it. Shema. There's a halachic discussion about how much do you really have to say from as what Moses wanted us to say, as opposed to rabbinic embellishment to get to the 3 paragraphs. Okay, so I've done enough talking. Any questions, comments? Over to you guys. Or is your chamomile tea waiting for you? Because mine's waiting for me. So, good. I will, hopefully, I'm going to say a prayer to find my source sheet, because I really put a lot of effort into it. I can share the source sheet with you. I will share the recording of this with you. And please God, we'll see each other next Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Well, nice to meet everybody.
And if there's
Yeah,
something
too.
you want to, you know, if it was too much, too little, some things you'd like, just go email me. Gil and I will laugh about it.
I'll be sending viruses around to all you guys soon. So don't open anything from me at all. Just don't open any attachments.
Okay.
I'd expect nothing less.
Yeah. You guys are on alert anyway. You're military, so it's all good.
All right, great. Guys, have a great week. Excellent meeting, Dan and David tonight. Thank you for
Nice
joining.
talking to you
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a great evening.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.